Hello. My name is Ronald M. Kim, your cultural bridge connector. Today, we are going to focus on the differences between low context and high context. Let's get started. Okay, let's start with low context culture first. There are some things we should not forget when meeting with person or people from low context culture societies. Number one, your message should be explicit and straightforward. In other words, when delivering a message, your message should be concise, simple, and get to the point as much as possible so that your listeners do not have to guess what you really meant. Another point we have to remember is what is said is more important. That means there are relatively less importance on word choices, tones, and facial expressions in low context cultures. The examples of low context cultures are Western Northern Europe, like the UK, Germany, Sweden, Norway, Scandinavian, and North America except French-speaking Canada, which is Quebec, and Australia and New Zealand. Oh, by the way, there's one more thing I have to share about low context cultures. When it comes to low context versus high context, low context culture category have a higher percentage of immigrant countries. Representative examples are North America, US and Canada, and Australia, New Zealand. Then, what about high context culture? Number one we should remember is the communication style in high context culture will be implicit and indirect. That means word choice, tone, and facial expressions matter. Because, like I already mentioned, the general communication style in high context culture won't be explicit and direct, sharing everything in detail. If I add one more thing, high context societies have a longer shared history. Think of the countries in Asia and Europe. Because they have a longer shared history, the members in a high context culture do not have to share everything in detail. The examples of high context cultures are Asia, including all Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, and South Asia. India subcontinent area. Middle East, Africa, Latin Europe, including France, which is culturally Latin Europe, although many people regard France as Western Europe. Lastly, Latin America. Let's see this figure comparison chart from the book Culture Map by Ari Meyer in 2014. On the left side, as you can see, the low context society examples like US, Australia, Canada, and Germany, Denmark, Finland, you name it. In the middle, Poland, Brazil, France, Russia, Singapore. On the right side, the high context societies like India, Kenya, Japan, Korea, Indonesia. Let's focus on the high context part first. I want you to look carefully Singapore and India. Compared to the other high context cultures like Japan, Korea, they are relatively on the left side, which is towards the lower context leaning. What Singapore and India share in common is both Singapore and India are multinational, multicultural and multilinguistic society, whereas Japan, Korea are relatively homogeneous society. And let's focus in the middle. Brazil, Argentina versus France, Russia. What does Brazil and Argentina share in common? Again, similar to Singapore and India, both Brazil and Argentina are immigrant society. On the left circle, low context group, you can see US, Australia, Canada, all the three countries are immigrant society, whereas the other low context countries like Germany, UK, although now they're gradually changing, but traditionally they're not like the US, Australia, or Canada. What is the reason why immigrant societies tend to have a lower context character? That's related to their history, their country history in the past. When immigrants arrived those immigrant countries in the past, many of them have different cultural backgrounds and linguistic backgrounds and many other differences, as they had little cultural common context in the past. The communication among them should be concise, get to the point, and direct as much as possible so that they can easily understand what they meant, regardless of their cultural background. Thank you for watching the video Low Context versus High Context Part 1. At the Part 2, I will focus on the possible cultural misunderstandings between low context and high context culture, and we'll also focus on what can we try to minimize those cultural differences. So I will see you at the Part 2 video.